All right? You can say hi to period 6 and 8. Okay? All right. Excuse me. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Like I said, all right, I do not want those two classes to fall behind, so this is where I really need your guys' cooperation. Okay? So just one quick announcement for period 6 and 8. All right, you guys heard it already. All right, the test is going to be 2 weeks from today on chapter 7. All right, Friday, February 28th. All right, so just keep that in mind. Yesterday we started talking about Athens. All right, we finished up Sparta, and we talked about the development of a democracy. Okay, and I know we got up to it in here. All right, the person that is kind of credited for establishing a democracy, right, in Athens is the man Cleisthenes. Okay, he introduces a democracy. He helps create the Council of 500. All right, he extends, all right, powers to assembly that were not there before, such as the ability to vote on laws, all right, choose officials, to be able to debate matters openly within an assembly meeting. And, you know, with all of this, all right, Cleisthenes has kind of earned himself, all right, a nickname in history. Anybody know what his nickname is? Okay, and if you didn't write this down yesterday, you should certainly write it down today. All right, Cleisthenes is also known as what, Shay?
Father of democracy.
Very good. All right, father of democracy. Okay, so you want to make sure you write that down. All right, somewhere. All right, where you will remember. Okay. Now, there were certain people in Athens that were not allowed to be part of the Council of 500, not allowed to be in the assembly. Okay, and they were kind of limited. All right, their political rights were limited. All right, all women. All right, sorry, ladies. All right, you did not have any real political rights in Athens. Foreign-born men. All right, so if you were born outside of the Greek polis, Athens, all right, you did not have any of those rights as well. And then slaves, obviously, they were limited in their political rights. All right, definitely know that in order to serve on the Council of 500, you were chosen by lottery each year. Okay, and Cleisthenes created this council so that at least 50 representatives from each town. All right, he divided the towns, into 10. 50 representatives from each town would be part of that council and have the ability to create laws, to deal with other, foreign Greek city-states, right, and the higher importance matters. Yes, Jonathan? It depends on the Greek city-state. Right, some Greek city-states did allow it. All right, it really depended on each city-state. Like the Spartans, they had the helots. They were never able to buy their food. Yes?
How much people lived in Athens?
In Athens, it was around maybe 250,000 people at its height.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out the chances of winning the lottery.
Winning the lottery?
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't like they're winning money. It was a lottery to serve on a council. You know how we vote people into the Senate? We vote people to serve on the House? Everyone's in the assembly, so every citizen can go to the assembly meetings. To serve on a council, it was a lottery. Not like you're going to win, $5 trillion. All right, you put your name in a lottery. Maybe some people thought that. They probably weren't the sharpest tools in Athens. Okay, sharpest minds. All right. Yes?
What if you didn't want to surf in the lottery, or if you couldn't surf in the lottery? Not lottery.
See, in Athens, it was something people looked forward to doing. Like they wanted to be part of the council. It was like, what celebrity culture is created today. People want to be on TV. People want to be famous. People want to make a lot of money. Maybe not everyone, but I'd say most people would want that. Council is like the way to being a celebrity in Athens. Ryan?
Was there more people in Athens or Sparta?
Athens grew to be more populated. But Sparta, that polis was bigger in size. So Sparta was as large as Texas. Athens' population was like New York. And the size of it was like New York. Smaller, more populated, still pretty big. You know, Texas, huge, all right, pretty populated, but not as populated as New York, right? Even though Texas today is becoming pretty populated. Lizzie?
Was there ever like a situation where a woman dressed up like a man so they could do the thing?
A woman would dress up like a man?
Like what had
In Athens, they were very strict on kind of making sure things like that didn't happen. I'm not going to get into too much detail on how they were strict. You know, that's just how they controlled it. Maybe there was one person, some women that were able to sneak into an assembly meeting, but very rarely was the case because everyone, it was so small, people knew nearly everyone. All right? Okay? So the democracy that existed in Athens is much different than the democracy we have today. For example, the democracy we have today, every citizen, right? Obviously women are involved and people of every single race. Every citizen chooses officials to make decisions on law, all right, to vote on a particular issue. However, in Athens, okay, every citizen could gather at meetings, all right, whether it is mostly assembly meetings, to decide on matters related to the city-state. All right, and that type of democracy is a direct democracy. For example, you know, if the United States was a direct democracy today, that would mean, you know, last week, all right, the Senate voted on whether or not to remove Donald Trump from president. All right, and if the United States was a direct democracy, that means every single person in the United States could have gone down to the Capitol and basically given their vote on whether or not to remove Donald Trump from the United States. All right, so all of you would have been able to have a vote. All right, but because we are a representative democracy, we choose people to make those decisions for us. Okay, and only 100 people voted, not billions of people. All right, otherwise we probably would still be calculating votes, whether or not Trump should still be president. All right, so that's the difference between a direct democracy and a representative democracy. Okay, in Athens, meetings were held about every 10 days, and meetings were held outside the agora, basically on top of a hill, and on top of the hill there was like a stage where someone would speak, or a stage where two people would debate a particular issue. You know, just like, you know, if you watch any of the news on the impeachment going back to the House, all right, there would be a Republican speak on why Donald Trump should not be impeached. Then there would be someone speak, mainly a Democrat, on why Trump should be impeached, and they kind of go back and forth. Okay, but they're not really yelling at each other. They're just reading a script that they put together. And that's how meetings would be carried out in Athens. All right, it was very organized. Right, you don't have people, you know, speaking above the person talking. You don't have side conversations going on. Now, I'm sure there were people like whispering and, you know, talking very quietly while someone was speaking, right, just like it happens in class. But most of you, when I speak, you know, for example, you guys are paying attention, right? Most of you. All right, some of you guys sometimes are staring out into the abyss, dreaming of what you're going to do over February recess, okay? Or imagining how many Valentine's Day cookies you're going to eat later today, all right? Whatever the case may be, all right? But most of you are paying attention, okay? And at these meetings, all right, they would pass laws, elect officials, make decisions on war, any foreign matters, or dealing with other Greek city-states. And one important group of officials that you need to know in Athens, all right, were the magistrates. All right, and magistrates were kind of like generals. All right, because the Athenians did have an army, just like the Spartans. They didn't just put as much of an emphasis on their military as the Spartans. All right, and they had 10 generals or magistrates that would help the assembly carry out its procedures. All right, they would be in charge of the Navy, be in charge of the military, and any other kind of administrative type matter. All right. Anybody still working on this slide? All right, I'll give you guys a couple seconds, all right, to fill this out. So know what a direct democracy is, okay? Know that every single citizen could attend an assembly meeting, okay? And definitely know who magistrates are. Hopper?
If there are like too many people in like one of the meetings, would they like go outside some of the people like when they voted?
There was like there was organization to how they would vote, but not necessarily every citizen would attend a meeting. They were all allowed to attend, but not everyone necessarily did attend. For example, Hopper, do you think every citizen really votes in elections?
No.
No. Just like there's people that think, oh, my vote doesn't count. I don't care. There are people like that in Athens. Historians estimate that, there's around 250,000 people in Athens. That's including women, children, foreign people, slaves. Out of those 250,000, maybe a couple thousand are attending assembly meetings regularly. It depends on if there's something interesting, something that's really important, all right, that maybe would bring more people to a meeting. But it was outside on a hill, so everyone would be literally standing outside. If we had meetings in like the Capitol building for every citizen, we're going to need a bigger Capitol, all right? Eva?
So if this was a direct democracy, could like kids our age vote, or do you have to be perfectly 7?
At least 18. Yes. Yeah. The Athenians had like a voting age requirement as well, or not a voting age requirement, but an age requirement when you had when you would get your political rights. I think it was like 16, 17, around there, a little younger than 18. Yes, Aaron.
The word generals.
Magistrates.
No, like the line
Where?
next to the left of the word generals is a line.
Isn't that the scene?
Oh, it's supposed to be an arrow.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my arrow's really bad. You should see generals there, but I just wanted to point out so you don't get confused. Jonathan?
Would you become a magistrate?
You spend time in the military, which you could put time in after you graduate school in Athens, and then if you want to make that your career, then once you're over the age of 30, you could try and become a magistrate. You had to be at least the age of 30. All right? Then you could work your way up to general. Moving on. All right? Next important aspect of Athens that we need to talk about is education. All right? And this is a very important idea, all right, that takes root in Athens. All right, so two important ideas that affect our society that really take root in Athens. One, democracy. Second thing, education. All right, and some of you are probably maybe blaming the Athenians for the fact that there is, education for every person in our country. All right, the Athenians believed that in order for a democracy to be successful, you needed intelligent, all right, and educated citizens. All right, which is what we need today. All right, which is why your parents send you to school, all right, and your parents want more for you, which is why they're sending you to the Latin school, all right, to Kellenberg. And in Athens, schooling began around the age of 7, all right, and only boys went to school. All right, so girls, if we were in Athens today, you would have been able to sleep in, wake up whenever you wanted, and didn't have to worry about, rushing over to school. Okay, boys, you had to go to school because if you're an Athenian boy, you're going to grow up, all right, one day and be able to have, all right, political rights. You're guaranteed within Athens. And very similar to how when you go to school today, you travel from class to class, all right, and each teacher teaches a different subject. And that was probably a little bit different for some of you because, just to show hands, how many of you came from a school where one teacher taught you multiple subjects? Okay. The method used here at Kellenberg is a very classical style of teaching. It's known as the Socratic method. in which students learn from a particular teacher that has expertise in a subject matter. All right, so you go to Mrs. Page for reading. You go to Mrs. Villani for like English, grammar, writing, okay? You come here for history. All right, you go to Mrs. Carmen for science. You go to Mr. Brennan for religion. Okay, and just like you have a different teacher for each subject, all right, the Athenian boys would have a different teacher for each subject. And you can see, all right, the subjects they studied are very similar to the subjects you have today, right? So the teaching method that developed in Athens is very similar to methods used by schools like Kellenberg, right, and other schools today. Kaylin? Rhetoric?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. All right, I'm going to get up to it in a sec.
That's what I was about to say.
Okay? So they studied reading, grammar, poetry. You guys study poetry and reading, right? Do you guys study poetry? You're going to. All right. History, mathematics, all right, with Mrs. Riker. They did study science as well. Sorry, I forgot to include that. Music. All right, you guys will take music next year. And rhetoric. Anyone know what rhetoric is? I'll write this in a different color. Go green. No one knows what rhetoric is? All right. Rhetoric is a class on public speaking. Okay. So they had a teacher that basically taught them how to speak, in public. And why do you think they had a class on that? Why do you think they had that?
Because first they had to do speeches for the assemblies.
Very good. All right, they had to kind of prepare themselves to be ready to do, give speeches at assemblies. Okay, if they were part of the council, they got to be able to debate a matter openly. All right, just like maybe some of you one day will do speech and debate. I think in reading, Mrs. Page makes you guys do presentations, right? Biography. I think you had to read. Okay, I know you don't like those presentations. All right, but that's building like public speaking skills. All right, public speaking skills is built kind of in different, subjects. Now you don't have a class on rhetoric, all right, but the Athenians did. All right, Athenian girls, all right, like I said, they did not have to attend school. They were educated at home, all right, and also help out around home, household chores if there's a young baby. All right, the older sister would help out the little baby, help mom out around the house. All right, and you can see there in the picture, all right, a bunch of students, all right, learning from a teacher. All right, no, I will never dress like that as a teacher. Okay, maybe Mr. Brennan, no. All right, but I don't know if you want to see him wearing a bed sheet. Okay, that'd be a little scary. All right, and I'm sure you would love to wear shorts in the hot summertime. They don't have shirts on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I could imagine. I hope they had shirts when they went to school. All right. All right. They didn't have like months that they went to school. They went to school pretty much like throughout the year. It just wasn't as often as like. I'm sure they had breaks. I just don't know their entire like school calendar. I wasn't around back then. Sebastian?
Like the Spartans, did they stay somewhere or did they go back home?
They went back home. All right, so at the age of 7, they begin schooling. They're educated all the way to the age like 16, all right, in these different subjects. And then, all right, boys would be required to learn military tactics and training for like 3 or 4 years. All right, and every Athenian boy was required to do at least 2 years of military service, and then they can continue a career in the military, or they could, do something else with their life. All right, so it was 2 years Athenians were required military service. So every boy still learned military training and went through some sort of military training, but it wasn't as intense and required as Spartans. All right, anybody still working here? All right, moving on. All right, so we're going to start section 3 today, the Greco and Persian Wars. And you got to remember, all right, from last trimester, we learned about the Persian Empire. You guys remember them? Does anybody remember who established the Persian Empire? Let's see, a little comprehensive review here in February. Who established the Persian Empire? Valentina. You remember from last trimester? Someone help her out. Aaron? Hammurabi? No. Patrick? Not Hammurabi. Persian Empire. Thomas? Forgot. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Hopper? Cyrus the Great. And does anybody remember, all right, the last king we spoke about when we were covering the Persians? Jonathan? Very good, Darius the First. And Darius is going to continue to expand, all right, the Persian Empire west to the point where he starts to run into areas that were under Greek control, like the western part of Asia Minor, right? Areas in northern Greece, as you can see in the picture here. You're going to circle all these areas in purple, all right, were areas controlled by Greek city-states. The Persians conquered them. Patrick, question?
Why do we call it Asia Minor?
It's just a name for this peninsula. It's got several names. Today it's Turkey, right, the country Turkey. It's also known as the Anatolian Peninsula, but I think it was just known as like nicknamed like Mini Asia. All right, and the Greco-Persian Wars, all right, were a series of battles, all right, in a war that took place between the Greek city-states and the powerful Persian Empire. All right, and Darius was the king at the outset or the start of the Persians. And how the Persian War started, all right, in the mid-500s, what happens is the Greek cities in Asia Minor are conquered. All right, we're going to run out of time. All right, the bell's going to ring. We'll talk about the Persian Wars when we get back from February recess. Okay. Period 2, thank you for letting me use you, all right, for this lesson. All right. Have a great break.